And we're back. You're listening to the Entrepreneurial Web. I'm your host, Jeremiah Fox, here with my guest, Sam Himmelstein. We ended the last segment talking about what it was like in Brooklyn, in your part of Brooklyn, Gravesend, as a teenager and protesting the war, growing up in a family that was very anti-racist, pretty communist, but like liberal thinkers, and that impact on you and how it led to you becoming a tenant lawyer. Right. You were just telling a great story. I mean, we also mentioned Sam is a lifelong musician. We'll get into more details about that later, but you were talking about your mother being a musician. Your grandfather was actually in the Philharmonic. Why don't you continue?
Right.
This is really great.
So, I often, music and politics are my two big things, right?
And the two go hand in hand pretty well.
Exactly. The music I got from my mother. Her father was a cellist in the New York Philharmonic. Her brother ran away from home at age 16 to join a swing band, which was at the time the equivalent of
a rock band. That was it. You were the pop artist of the day.
Literally ran away from home to play sax in a swing band, and was a lifelong professional club
Your grandfather
musician.
didn't approve?
He did not. And he later became the vice president of Local 802, the musicians union.
Wow. Yeah. Awesome.
So the politics, my dad gave me the politics, my mom gave me the music and the culture, right? But my mother was a piano teacher, and one of her students was the younger sister of one of my law partners. So we actually knew the Gribben family back then. And Bill Gribben was the older, sullen kind of, he didn't want any part of the younger kid's brother. But he became, in 1968, the first person to openly resist the draft in Brooklyn. So he was drafted, and he was called to Fort Hamilton in Brooklyn, in Bay Ridge. And 200 of us, and myself included, his brother included, were on a picket line outside, and he refused to be inducted. And there's a newspaper article about it in the Bay Ridge local paper, front page, and big picture of the picket line with me right in the middle of it, which is hanging in Billy's office right now.
Nice.
Right. And the quote was Billy saying, "The fight for freedom is at home." And so there are these, right. And then, fast forward to late 80s, and Billy becomes an associate at my firm and is now my partner.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it is, right?
That's kind of why we chose the name, the Entrepreneurial Web, for the show, because it's about like all those connections, the connectivity and networking, not in a way like the sleazy kind of networking, but it's like you find so many ways, like you're all connected, and it's very cyclical. That's really awesome.
Yeah.
So we were just mentioning how music and politics, like how did that play out for you at that point in your life where it was a pretty musically political time?
Yeah. And
it got you into what? Because you were saying before you were doing like a society band, but the music I've played with you and come to know you in association with is a little different.
I mean, I've always I didn't do any playing from the Five Sharps, which is when I was 16, 17, until I formed the Love Handles, which was 2001. I went to a gazillion concerts.
You didn't play at all?
No.
You played at home, right?
Yeah, I played at home, right. And I entertained at parties and stuff like that, right. But I didn't play in a band.
By the way, Sam throws one of the most epic holiday parties ever in his house. How many people do you
Well, it depends. I hope Amy's not watching. because she wants to keep it small this year.
15 people. It sounds like 1,500. Sure, no problem.
No, we've had like 200 people at that party.
A huge house.
And I always try to invite a couple of like semi-celebrities.
It's been great. I've been playing next to crazy people there.
Then we have the jam at the end of the party.
There's always live music.
Everybody brings their instruments and out they come. Right. So I mean, I went to see the Stones 28 times. I hung out like we all did at the Fillmore,
You told me about, what was the show at MSG where you were like out all night waiting for tickets?
Oh, the Bangladesh concert. Yeah. When we heard that George Harrison was going to be playing, we literally went out the night before, brought sleeping bags and slept outside of Madison Square Garden so we could get tickets. So we were not going to miss that show.
And you got in.
We got in,
Nice.
we got tickets. And then, of course, in the middle of the show, Bob Dylan, who hadn't played live in 3 years at that point, comes on the stage. And I was with Les Gribbin. And I look over at Les when Dylan comes out on the stage, and the tears are streaming down his cheek. It's Dylan. He's why he can't. It's like it was a magical moment.
Yeah.
It really was.
I mean, all your stories are really magical.
Yeah.
That's why I love.
I'll give you. I got one more good one.
And then I've got one.
For about 6 months, somebody decided to open a rock theater in Borough Park, Brooklyn, right on New Utrecht Avenue.
Perfect spot for it.
Have concerts on Friday night. The neighborhood loved
Not
it.
Saturday.
Right? No. So
no shows on Saturday.
it lasted literally 6 months, and it was an old movie theater. And so one night, guess who played there? The Grateful Dead. And we get there, and show starts around 9 o'clock and ended at 4:30 in the morning. Typical Dead show.
Yeah.
And at the end of the show, the Dead say, we want to announce a surprise show tomorrow at the Fillmore. It's going to be Hot Tuna, Traffic, and Us. And we got on the train.
Went straight there.
Went straight there. Sat down outside the Fillmore until the box office opened. Then went home and went to sleep.
But you went to the show.
Oh yeah. That was another. I mean, they were all jamming together.
Why didn't you just buy your tickets online?
Yeah, thank you. No, online then meant getting online. Yeah,
sometimes overnight.
Yes,
that's crazy.
So I was always into the music scene, right, and always going to shows. And at one point, I was fortunate enough to get a client who was the travel agent for the Rolling Stones, which gave me access to incredible tickets and got me backstage twice. I took Charlie when he was 8 years old, my son.
Oh wow!
And we were hanging
out. He's got
so do I.
You both have the same.
He got it at age 6. For my 62nd birthday, Charlie took me to a tattoo parlor and got me a Rolling Stones tongue tattoo because that was his first tattoo, and he wanted to, be father and son.
Yeah, I know.
So
I've done something similar with my dad.
So we went to see them in Philly, and we got backstage, and all of a sudden, somebody comes through with a birthday cake, and they're heading into this back room, right? And it's Ron Wood's wife's birthday. And I pretend I'm with the entourage, and I sneak into the room, and we're all standing around her, and we sing Happy Birthday. So I sang with the Rolling Stones. I sang Happy Birthday with the Rolling Stones.
And then they looked up and they go, who's this guy?
Yeah, exactly. He's the only one who can sing. No.
Damn.
Yeah. No, it was quite a thrill.
No more backstage tickets.
No. That's it. Right.
So I want to share my story that musical encounter with Sam and kind of the company he keeps from time to time. So you were being honored at the
Met Council,
and it was like in Chelsea or something like that.
It was at a union headquarters, SEIU union headquarters, I
like
think.
18th Street or something like that. And Marty, your drummer, was sick that day, and you called me that morning, and he's like, I know you know the tunes. It was all covers, like the Stones and the Beatles and stuff like that.
The Zombies. She's not there. Remember, we opened with that.
Of course. Yeah. And Brad was playing bass, who was my main bass player at the time. So I was like, sure, I'll come and do the gig. Didn't give me much more information than that. It was just like a spur of the moment thing. So I get to the show, and you start saying, "Oh, a few people are going to come up and play." What was her name?
Lorenza Ponce, who plays with Bon Jovi and lots of other people.
And I had played with her at your holiday party, so I knew her, and I was like, "Oh, that's really cool." And you just kept talking, and I was just like, It was like a busy environment. There were a lot of people there. I was just like, "Okay, whatever." And then
who comes on stage?
JJ French from Twisted Sister.
Right.
So we're playing "Come Together."
Yes.
Me and Brad are just driving the
right,
and just is great groove, and we get to the guitar solo, and Jay just turns towards us, and he's in like his rock god stance, doing a solo, and he's just like, "Fuck yeah, boys, fuck yeah!" And I'm just like, okay, I could die right now, and it would be fine. I worked my whole life to hustle as a musician and got nowhere. And the impressive thing about Sam and his crew, I remember going to a Love Handle show at the cutting room, and it was early on a Friday, like
Probably.
maybe 6 o'clock or
Yeah.
something like that. My friends and I moved to the city to hustle music. We all were trained musicians, so on and so forth. Thought we knew what we were doing. We'd play to the other bands in the room at the club, like never drawing a crowd. Friday night, nobody's coming out, didn't matter, whatever. We show up to this show at the cutting room. It's 6 p.m. in the evening. You think most people are not ready to go out. It was standing room only.
Right.
And these guys are a bunch of lawyers. And I
Right.
was like, what are we doing wrong?
Right.
But it was about your relationships.
Right. It was about that I have a lot of connections, and so do the other members of the band.
Right.
And what I learned, I think if I had to think of what one of my skills is I'm a good marketer. I'm in charge of that at my law firm.
Well, you're an excellent communicator.
Okay.
And that translates to a good marketer.
So every time we played, to me the key was to sort of create a buzz about it, create a scene. We would do a flyer, really create. Felicia would make these really creative flyers, right?
Yeah.
And everyone had a different theme, and so we'd invite people, and there would be this very colorful flyer, and people would. When people see that, they think, oh, this is a special event. This is, instead of just getting an email, right? So. Between my clients, my adversaries, a lot of my landlord lawyers would show up at those shows, believe it or not.
They were looking for dirt on you. They're like, we're going to get this guy next time in court.
Exactly. Right.
He was doing blow in the bathroom. This guy's bad.
Yeah. Court personnel, family.
But a lot of them, I know some of them were your clients, but they were people that admired you, and that was what it was about. I mean, you guys are excellent musicians. They've been playing their whole life. They've got the chops for sure. You always have to have the goods, but it was just fascinating to me how it was the people you had made connections with, and I was like, man, I've been doing this all wrong. I've been thinking about the product only, like, oh, this is my music, this is my band, we're good, look at what we can do, da 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 da, not focusing on the relationship. And that was the first indicator to me. And you always influenced me, and we definitely got into that vibe in the neighborhood, but seeing that with you just added fuel to the fire, where it's like, okay, this is the direction to go in. Like I said, you've got to have a good product, but you really have to build the relationships. That's what the most important thing is. So we're going to take another short break. When we come back, we're going to hear how Sam got into law, what that whole process was like, what it was like building a law firm, and some of the entrepreneurial aspects of that. You're listening to the Entrepreneurial Web. We'll be back in just a few.